The Korean Mafia boss was being mocked on his blind date. Then the quiet black girl held his hand. The laughter starts before the appetizers arrive. Shin Jae-won sits perfectly still at the center table of Maison de Lune, Seoul's most exclusive French restaurant, while the woman across from him covers her mouth with manicured fingers and giggles into her champagne. "I'm sorry," she says, "not sorry at all. It's just they told me you were the Shin Jae-won, the one who runs Gangnam, the one who makes grown men cry." She tilts her head, diamond earrings catching the candlelight. "But you're so quiet. Almost boring, honestly." The restaurant hums with the quiet sounds of wealth. Crystal glasses, whispered conversations, the soft scrape of silver against porcelain. At the surrounding tables, people pretend not to watch. But they watch. They always watch. Jae-won's fingers rest lightly on the white tablecloth. His expression reveals nothing. 20 years of controlling every muscle in his face has made him a master of stillness. But inside his chest something cracks. "My mother arranged this meeting," he says, voice neutral. "If you're not interested." "Oh, I'm fascinated," the woman interrupts. Her name is Yoon Sua, daughter of a hotel empire. 28 years old. The kind of beautiful that knows exactly what it's worth. "I just expected someone more impressive. You've barely said 10 words. You haven't even looked at the menu. And you're wearing..." She gestures at his simple black suit. "That. The suit costs more than most people's cars. But she doesn't know that. She only knows what she sees. A man who doesn't perform. My father always said the quiet ones are either geniuses or frauds." Sua sips her champagne. "Which one are you?" At the table directly behind Jae-won, someone drops a fork. The sound is small, insignificant. But Jae-won notices because he notices everything. It's how he stayed alive this long. He doesn't turn around. "I think," Sua continues, leaning forward with a conspiratorial smile, "that you're just scared. All that reputation, all those rumors about bodies and blood and territory wars, but you're just a lonely man who lets his mother arrange his dates." She laughs again, louder this time. "That's actually kind of sad." The temperature in the room shifts. Not visibly. Not in any way the other diners would notice. But at the corners of the restaurant, 2 men in dark suits straighten almost imperceptibly. They've been watching their boss endure this humiliation for 23 minutes, and their hands have begun to itch. Jae-won doesn't signal them. He could end this. One word. One gesture. This woman has no idea that her father's hotel empire survives, because Jae-won allows it to survive. That 3 of her family's board members answer to him. That her entire glittering life exists at his discretion. But he won't tell her. Because that would mean caring enough to defend himself. And Shin Jae-won stopped caring about what people thought of him a long time ago. Or so he tells himself. "Maybe you're right," he says quietly. "Maybe I am just..." "Excuse me." The voice comes from behind him. Soft. Accented. Female. Jae-won turns. And the world tilts. She's standing beside the table that dropped the fork, clutching a leather portfolio to her chest like armor. Dark skin glowing warm in the candlelight. Natural hair twisted into an elegant updo that's coming slightly loose on one side. A simple navy dress that doesn't fit the room's wealth but fits her perfectly. She's looking directly at Sua. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she says, and her voice carries the careful precision of someone speaking their second language. "But I couldn't help overhearing. And I think..." She pauses. Swallows. Her fingers tighten on the portfolio. "I think you're being incredibly cruel to someone who's done nothing to deserve it." The restaurant goes silent. Sua's champagne glass freezes halfway to her lips. Jae-won doesn't move. Doesn't breathe. "Excuse me." Sua's voice drips ice. "Who are you? A waitress? Because if you're staff, I'll have you fired before." "I'm not staff." The woman's voice shakes slightly, but she doesn't back down. "I'm a guest. I was supposed to meet someone but they didn't show up, so I've been sitting alone for 40 minutes, trying not to cry into my overpriced salad. And the whole time, I've been listening to you humiliate this man for no reason." Sua laughs. Disbelieving. Condescending. "This is adorable. You're defending him? Do you even know who he is?" "No." The woman shakes her head. "But I know what cruelty sounds like. And I know that being powerful doesn't mean someone deserves to be mocked. Something shifts in Jae-won's chest. It's unfamiliar, uncomfortable, like blood returning to a limb that's been numb for years. Sua sets down her glass with a sharp click. Listen, I don't know what delusional romantic fantasy you've constructed in your head, but this isn't your business. This is a private dinner between two families with centuries of history. So why don't you take your cheap dress and your opinions back to whatever? That's enough. Jae-won's voice is quiet, but it fills the room. So his mouth snaps shut. The two men at the corners of the restaurant take one step forward, then stop. Waiting. Jae-won rises from his chair with the controlled grace of a predator. He's not tall, 5'9", but something about the way he moves makes the space around him feel dangerous. He doesn't look at Sua. He looks at the woman. What's your name? She blinks. Surprised that he's addressing her. Surprised that anyone in this room would acknowledge her existence. Adiz, she says. Adiz Okonkwo. But everyone calls me Ada. Ada. He says it carefully, tasting the syllables. You said someone stood you up tonight. She nods. Her grip on the portfolio loosens slightly. A business meeting. They canceled while I was already here. I didn't want to leave because... She trails off, embarrassed. Because leaving felt like losing. Her eyes widen. Yes, exactly. Jae-won pulls out the chair beside him. The one that's been empty all evening because Sua refused to let anyone sit close to her. Have dinner with me. The words land like grenades. Sua makes a sound that might be a laugh or might be a scream. You cannot be serious. You're choosing her over me? Do you have any idea what my father will? Your father will do nothing. Jae-won's voice remains soft, almost gentle. Because your father knows exactly who I am, even if you don't. For the first time, Sua looks uncertain. What does that mean? Jae-won finally looks at her. And something in his eyes makes her lean back in her chair, pressing against the velvet as if she could disappear into it. It means you should leave, he says. Now. Before I remember this conversation tomorrow. Sua stands so fast her chair scrapes against the marble floor. She grabs her bag, her hands shaking. Opens her mouth to say something cutting. Something that will restore her dignity. But she sees his eyes. And she runs. The restaurant exhales. Conversations resume at half volume. Servers begin moving again. The two men in dark suits return to their corners, their postures relaxing by degrees. Jae-won is still standing. Still holding the chair. Looking at Ada. Please, he says. Sit. If you're watching this unfold, if you're wondering whether to stay, then know this. What happens next will change both of their lives forever. Make sure you're subscribed to Seoul and Savannah stories, because this story is just beginning. Ada doesn't sit. Not immediately. She stands there, frozen, the portfolio still clutched to her chest, and her mind races through every possible explanation for what just happened. The man in front of her radiates something she can't name. It's not charm. He hasn't smiled once. It's not warmth. His eyes are too careful, too guarded. Something heavier. Magnetic gravity that makes her feel pulled toward him, even as every survival instinct screams danger. I shouldn't, she says. I don't even know you. You defended me without knowing me. That was different. That was just. She searches for the word. Decency. Decency. He repeats it like it's a foreign concept. Do you often extend decency to strangers in restaurants? Do you often invite strangers to dinner after your date runs away? The corner of his mouth twitches. Not quite a smile, but close. Never. Then why me? The question hangs between them. Jae-won doesn't answer immediately. He's studying her face, her posture, the way she holds herself, defensive but not afraid, uncertain but not weak. Because, he says slowly, you're the first person in a very long time who's looked at me like I'm human. The words hit Ada somewhere deep. She thinks of her own isolation. The 6 months she's been in Seoul, building a business from nothing, surrounded by people who look through her like she's invisible. The way her date tonight, a potential investor, didn't even bother to cancel until she was already seated, humiliated, waiting. She thinks of home. Lagos. Her father's disappointed silence when she told him she was leaving. Her mother's tears at the airport. The way her younger sister Kayamika had gripped her hand and whispered, "Asterisk, don't forget us. Don't become someone we don't recognize." Asterisk. She thinks of all the nights she spent in her tiny studio apartment, wondering if she made the right choice. And she thinks of this man's eyes. How tired they look beneath the stillness. "Okay," she says. She sits. The server appears instantly, professional smile firmly in place. "Would the lady like to see a menu or bring her whatever the chef recommends?" Jae-won says. "And water." "Still not sparkling." "I prefer sparkling, actually." Jae-won looks at her. A flicker of something surprise maybe crosses his face. "Sparkling," he tells the server. "My mistake." The server disappears. Ada sets her portfolio on the floor beside her chair, straightening her spine, forcing herself to meet his eyes. "You seem like someone who isn't used to being corrected." "I'm not." "Is that a warning?" "It's an observation." He picks up his water glass but doesn't drink. Just holds it, watching her over the rim. "What business meeting were you here for?" "I'm starting a skincare company. K-beauty products infused with West African botanicals. Shea butter from Ghana. Black soap from Nigeria. Baobab oil from Senegal. All formulated with Korean technology and packaging." "That's ambitious." "It's necessary. Black women spend billions on skincare every year. But most products aren't made for us. Most formulas don't account for melanin, for different skin concerns, for..." She stops herself. "Sorry. I tend to lecture when I'm nervous." "You're nervous?" "I'm sitting across from a man who just made a grown woman flee in terror." "Yes. I'm nervous." Jae-won sets down his glass. "You're also still here." "I'm stubborn." "That's not a flaw. Tell that to my father. He thinks stubbornness is the reason I'm unmarried at 25. "You're not married?" The question is neutral. Curious. But something beneath it makes Ada's pulse skip. "No." "Are you?" "No. That woman's," she mentioned families. "History." "My mother's arrangement." "Not mine." He pauses. "My mother believes a wife will make me more stable." "Will it?" "Nothing will make me stable, Ada." He says her name differently than before. Softer. Like he's practicing it. "That's not who I am." Ada should be afraid. She knows this. She can feel the weight of unspoken truths pressing against this conversation. Secrets lurking beneath every carefully chosen word. But there's something about the way he's looking at her, like she's the first real thing he's seen in years, that makes her stay. "Who are you then?" "Really?" Jae-won doesn't answer. Instead, he raises his hand slightly, a gesture so small she almost misses it. From the corners of the restaurant, the two men in dark suits approach. They stop at a respectful distance, heads bowed. "Have the kitchen prepare a private room," Jae-won says without looking at them. "We'll be relocating." "Yes, Chairman." "Chairman." The word echoes in Ada's mind as the men disappear. "Chairman of what?" Jae-won stands, offering her his hand. "Come with me. And I'll show you." Ada should refuse. Every reasonable part of her brain screams that this is exactly how women disappear. A mysterious man. A private room. A city where she has no family, no safety net, no one who would notice if she vanished. But Ada has never lived her life by what's reasonable. That's why she left home. That's why she came to Seoul. That's why she's building something impossible in a country where no one looks like her. She takes his hand. His palm is warm, calloused in unexpected places, strong without crushing. He leads her through the restaurant, past the curious stares, past the whispered speculation, through a door she hadn't noticed before. A hallway. Private. Soundproofed. And then a room. It's smaller than the main restaurant but more luxurious. A single table set for two, surrounded by windows that overlook the glittering Seoul skyline. City lights scattered like fallen stars against the darkness. Jae-won pulls out her chair again. She sits. He takes the seat across from her, and for a moment, they just look at each other. "You haven't let go of my hand," Ada says. Jae-won looks down. He's still holding her fingers, cradled lightly in his palm. He doesn't release her. "No," he says. "I haven't. Tell me something. If you were Ada, alone in a foreign country, sitting across from a man who makes people bow and flee, would you stay? Would you want to know his secrets?" Drop your answer in the comments. The food arrives in waves. Course after course, each more beautiful than the last. Delicate arrangements of seafood and vegetables. Thin slices of beef that melt on Ada's tongue. Small portions designed to tantalize rather than fill. But Ada barely tastes any of it. Because Jae-won is talking. Not much. Not quickly. Every sentence comes measured and careful, like he's selecting each word from a limited supply. But he's telling her things she suspects he doesn't tell anyone. My father built our organization from nothing, he says, pushing food around his plate without eating. He started as a collection agent for a gambling den in Busan. By the time I was born, he controlled the entire southern port industry. Organization, Ada repeats. That's a careful word. It's an accurate word. He meets her eyes. We are many things. Construction, real estate, entertainment, shipping. Some of it legitimate, much of it not. You're telling me you're a criminal. I'm telling you I was born into a world with its own rules. I didn't choose it, but I've learned to survive in it. How? The question is too direct, too personal. Ada knows she's pushing, but she can't seem to stop herself. Jae-won sets down his fork. My father was murdered when I was 16. Shot in front of me while we were having breakfast. I watched him die with chopsticks in his hand and his morning newspaper spread across the table. Ada's throat tightens. The men who killed him worked for a rival family, the Kim clan. They decided my father was too powerful, too dangerous. So they eliminated him and assumed his teenage son would be easy to control. But you weren't. No. Something dark moves behind Jae-won's eyes. I wasn't. He doesn't elaborate. He doesn't need to. Ada can read the history in his stillness. Years of violence, betrayal, survival. Years of becoming the kind of man who makes people run. Is that why you're exhausted? She asks softly. Because you've been fighting since you were 16? Jae-won's composure cracks. It's barely visible. A slight widening of his eyes, a tightness in his jaw, but Ada sees it. And she realizes with sudden clarity that no one has asked him that question before. No one has looked past the power and seen the cost. Yes, he says. That's exactly why. Silence stretches between them. Outside the windows, Seoul sparkles, oblivious to the weight of this conversation. Cars flow through streets like blood through veins. Neon signs pulse with life. A city of 12 million people, none of whom know that two strangers are sitting in this room, seeing each other clearly for the first time. My mother died when I was 8, Ada says. Jae-won looks at her sharply. Cancer. It was slow. By the end, she didn't recognize any of us. She would call for her own mother, thinking she was still a child. My father had to watch the love of his life forget that he existed. Ada doesn't know why she's telling him this. She hasn't talked about her mother in years. Hasn't let herself remember the smell of the hospital, the sound of the machines, the way her mother's hand felt so small and fragile in hers at the end. But something about Jae-won's confession has cracked her open too. After she died, my father became a different person. Harder. Angrier. He poured everything into work, into money, into making sure we never needed anything material again. But he forgot how to love us. Or maybe he was just too afraid to try. Afraid of what? Of losing us too. Ada blinks, surprised by the tears gathering in her eyes. I think watching my mother die broke something in him. Something that made him capable of softness. Jae-won reaches across the table. His hand covers hers. Some people become hard because they've been broken. Some people become hard because it's the only way to survive. And some people... He pauses, his thumb tracing a small circle on her wrist. Some people stay soft despite everything. Those are the dangerous ones. Dangerous. Because softness takes more strength than hardness. And people who can be gentle in a world that rewards cruelty, they're the ones who change things. Ada stares at him. Is that what you think I am? Dangerous. I think you walked into a room full of people who wanted to see me humiliated, and you stood up for a stranger because it was the right thing to do. His grip on her hand tightens slightly. I think you're building something impossible in a country that doesn't want you here. I think you miss home every single day, but you won't go back because you have something to prove. Ada's heart pounds against her ribs. How do you know that? Because I recognize the look in your eyes. Jae-won's voice drops to barely a whisper. It's the same look I see in the mirror. They leave the restaurant at midnight. The streets of Gangnam are still alive. Couples stumbling between bars, businessmen loosening ties, groups of young people clustered around food stalls. The February air bites cold, and Ada shivers involuntarily. Jae-won shrugs off his jacket and drapes it over her shoulders before she can protest. I'm fine. You're cold. You'll be cold. I don't feel cold. He says it matter-of-factly, like temperature is something that happens to other people. I don't feel much of anything most of the time. Ada pulls his jacket tighter around herself. It smells like him, sandalwood and something darker. Rain on stone. That's sad. It's useful. They walk slowly, neither of them in a hurry to end the evening. Emotions are liabilities in my world. They make you predictable, exploitable. But you're feeling something now. Jae-won stops walking. They're standing on a bridge over the Han River, the water glittering black beneath them, the city reflected in broken shards of light. Yes, he says, looking at her. I'm feeling something now. And it terrifies me. Ada should step back. Should create distance. Should remind herself that this man is a stranger, a criminal, a person whose world is built on violence and power. Instead, she steps closer. Being terrified isn't the worst thing, she says. Sometimes it means you're finally alive. Jae-won's hand rises slowly. His fingers brush her cheek, trailing along her jaw, coming to rest beneath her chin. Ada Okonkwo, he murmurs. What are you doing to me? I don't know. Her voice trembles. What are you doing to me? For a long moment they stand there suspended between past and future, between reason and madness. Then Jae-won's phone rings. The sound is jarring. Wrong. It shatters the moment like glass. Jae-won steps back, pulling the phone from his pocket. His face transforms instantly, the softness disappearing, the mask snapping back into place. What? Ada can't hear the voice on the other end, but she watches Jae-won's expression go cold, then colder, then something beyond cold. A kind of emptiness that makes her stomach drop. When? A pause. How many? Another pause. I'll be there in 15 minutes. He hangs up. What happened? Jae-won doesn't answer immediately. He's staring at the river, his jaw tight, his hands clenched at his sides. There's been an attack, he says finally. One of my warehouses. 3 of my men are dead. The words don't register at first. They seem impossible, absurd. How can death exist on a night like this? Oh my God. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. His voice is flat, mechanical. This is what my life is. This is what I was trying to explain. He turns to face her and Ada sees it now, the wall going up, brick by brick, sealing away whatever tenderness existed between them. Tonight was a mistake, he says. You should forget it happened. What? Go home, Ada. Go back to your life. Build your company. Find someone who can give you normalcy, safety, peace. He takes his jacket from her shoulders, his movements sharp and efficient. I can't give you any of those things. Jae-won. Don't. The word cuts like a knife. Don't say my name like that. Don't make this harder than it already is. Ada feels something inside her rebel. Something stubborn and fierce and utterly unwilling to let this moment slip away. You don't get to decide that for me. Jae-won freezes. You don't get to tell me what I should want or who I should forget. Ada's voice rises, fueled by emotions she doesn't fully understand. I've spent my whole life having people make decisions for me. My father, my culture, everyone who told me I was too ambitious, too stubborn, too much. And I came to Korea specifically to stop letting other people control my choices. This is different. No, it's not. She steps toward him, closing the distance he created. You felt something tonight. You said so yourself. And so did I. Maybe it's crazy. Maybe it's dangerous. Maybe it's the worst idea either of us has ever had. But you don't get to take that away from me just because you're scared. Jae-won stares at her. His mask wavers. Cracks. Something raw and desperate bleeds through. People around me get hurt, he says, and his voice breaks on the words. Everyone I've ever cared about has been used as leverage against me. My father. My mother. People I thought I loved. He swallows hard. I won't let that happen to you. So your solution is to push me away before I can matter? Yes. That's cowardice. That's survival. It's the same thing. Ada reaches for his hand, her fingers interlacing with his. You told me that softness takes more strength than hardness. You told me that people who can be gentle in a cruel world are dangerous. Did you mean it? Or were those just pretty words? Jae-won's breathing is unsteady. His fingers tighten around hers. I meant it. Then be dangerous with me. She lifts his hand to her chest, pressing his palm against her racing heart. Feel this. I'm terrified too. But I'm not running. The city roars around them. Wind whips across the bridge. Somewhere in the distance sirens wail. And Shin Jae-won, feared kingpin, criminal architect, ghost of Gangnam, makes a choice that will change everything. Come with me, he says. What would you do in Ada's shoes? Follow a man into darkness, not knowing what waits on the other side. Or walk away while you still can. The warehouse district looks different at 1 a.m. Industrial buildings rise like sleeping giants, their windows dark, their loading docks empty. The streets are slick with recent rain, reflecting the distant glow of streetlights. Jae-won's car, a black Mercedes that seems to absorb light rather than reflect it, pulls to a stop in front of a building marked with police tape. But no police are present. Instead, there are men. Dozens of them, gathered in clusters, their faces grim, their postures tense. They wear the same dark suits as the men from the restaurant, and they part like water when Jae-won's car arrives. Stay here, Jae-won says, reaching for the door handle. Ada grabs his arm. No. Ada. I told you I'm not running. That includes hiding in a car while you deal with whatever this is. He studies her face for a long moment. Whatever he sees there makes him nod once, reluctantly. Stay close. Don't speak unless I ask you to. And if I tell you to leave, I'll consider it. Despite everything, the corner of his mouth twitches. You're impossible. So I've been told. They exit the car together. The men's reactions are immediate. Surprise at seeing a woman. Confusion at her appearance, her skin. Her presence in a world that has no place for her. But they say nothing. Their eyes slide past her to their leader, waiting for explanation. Jae-won offers none. He walks toward the warehouse entrance, Ada at his side, and the crowd parts further to let them pass. Inside, the smell hits her first. Smoke. Copper. Something chemical and sharp. Ada forces herself not to react. Forces her feet to keep moving. Forces her eyes to take in the scene without flinching. The warehouse has been gutted by fire. Blackened walls, collapsed shelving, pools of water from the firefighters' hoses. And in the center of the destruction, three shapes covered by white sheets. Jae-won stops in front of them. An older man approaches, stocky, scarred, his face carved from hard experience. He bows deeply before speaking. Chairman. The attack came at 11:47. 3 assailants, armed with accelerants and firearms. Our men were caught off guard. He hesitates. Park Jin-ho, Lee Sung-min and Choi Dae-young. They didn't suffer. Don't lie to me, Secretary Kong. Jae-won's voice is quiet, controlled, but something in it makes the older man flinch. Fire is never quick. Secretary Kong bows his head. Yes, Chairman. Jae-won crouches beside one of the covered bodies. His hand hovers over the sheet, not quite touching. Jin-ho has a daughter, he says. She's 7. He showed me her picture last week. She drew him a rainbow because he told her his office was too gray. No one speaks. Sung-min was getting married next month. His fiancée hand-sewed her own dress. Traditional style with gold thread. He cried when he told me about it. Still silence. And Dae-young. Jae-won's voice cracks, so slightly that Ada almost misses it. Dae-young saved my life when I was 18. He took a bullet meant for my heart. I promised him I would protect his family until my last breath. He stands slowly, turns to face his men. And Ada sees something she will never forget. The mask is gone. Completely. What remains is grief so raw, so overwhelming, that it transforms his face into something barely human. Find them, Jae-won says. Find whoever did this. Bring them to me alive. And then... He pauses. His hands shake at his sides. Then make them understand what it means to take something from me. The men scatter. Only Secretary Kong remains, his eyes fixed on Ada with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity. Chairman. The woman? She stays. Jae-won doesn't look at Ada. Can't seem to look at anything. She's with me. Chairman, with respect, this is highly unusual. I don't care about unusual. Jae-won's voice hardens. I care about the fact that 3 of my brothers are dead, and the people responsible are still breathing. That's where your attention should be. Secretary Kong bows again, deeper this time. Yes, Chairman. He leaves. And Ada is alone with Jae-won in a charred warehouse, surrounded by death, wondering what she's gotten herself into. They don't speak on the drive to his home. It's not a house, it's an estate. Hidden in the hills above Seoul, surrounded by walls and gates and security that Ada can feel but can't see. The grounds are immaculate. Manicured gardens, a koi pond reflecting the moon, a traditional Korean pavilion that looks like it belongs in a museum. But inside, the house is sparse. Almost empty. Modern furniture in neutral colors. No photographs. No personal touches. No evidence that anyone actually lives here. Jae-won leads her to a sitting room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city below. He pours 2 glasses of whiskey from a crystal decanter and hands her one without asking if she wants it. She takes it. You should sleep, he says, lowering himself onto a leather sofa. There's a guest room prepared. Secretary Kong will show you. I'm not leaving you alone. Jae-won laughs. It's a harsh sound devoid of humor. I've been alone for 14 years. I think I can manage one more night. But you don't have to. Ada sits beside him on the sofa, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body, close enough to see the tremor in his hands as he lifts his glass. Why are you doing this? He asks, and there's genuine confusion in his voice. You could have walked away a dozen times tonight. You should have walked away. Instead, you're sitting in the home of a man who just ordered people found and tortured, drinking his whiskey, looking at him like he's what? Like he's someone worth saving. Ada takes a sip of the whiskey. It burns going down, but she doesn't cough. Won't give him the satisfaction. Maybe I think you are. Then you're a fool. Maybe. She turns to face him fully, tucking one leg underneath her. Or maybe I see something you can't see. Because you've been looking at yourself through everyone else's eyes for so long, you've forgotten what you actually look like. Jae-won stares at her. What do I look like to you? Ada considers the question carefully. She thinks about everything she's seen tonight, the power, the violence, the grief. The way he held her hand on the bridge. The way he spoke about his men like they were family. You look like a man who built walls so high he can't remember what's outside them, she says slowly. You look like someone who's been fighting so long he doesn't know how to stop. And you look like someone who desperately wants to believe there's more to life than survival. But you're terrified to reach for it because reaching means risking. Her words hang in the air. Jae-won sets down his glass. His hand rises to her face, cupping her cheek, his thumb brushing away a tear she didn't realize she'd shed. You're crying. I'm crying for you. Because I don't think you let yourself cry for yourself. His composure shatters. It happens all at once, the walls crumbling, the mask dissolving, everything he's been holding back flooding to the surface. His face twists with emotions too complicated to name, and suddenly he's pulling her toward him, burying his face in her shoulder, his body shaking with silent sobs. Ada holds him. She doesn't speak, doesn't try to comfort him with words, just wraps her arms around this powerful, terrifying, broken man and lets him fall apart. They stay like that for a long time. Eventually, the sobs quiet. Jae-won pulls back, his eyes red, his face stripped of all pretense. He looks younger than 30, vulnerable in a way that makes Ada's heart ache. I don't deserve this, he says hoarsely. I don't deserve you. That's not your decision to make. Ada. Stop. She places her fingers over his lips, silencing him. Stop telling me what you deserve. Stop predicting how this will end. For once in your life, just be here. With me. Without calculating all the ways it could go wrong. He captures her wrist, pressing his lips to her pulse point. I don't know how to do that. Neither do I. She smiles despite everything. I guess we'll figure it out together. Jae-won studies her face as if memorizing it. If you stay, he says slowly, you become a target. My enemies will see you as leverage. They'll try to hurt you to get to me. I know. You'll have to change your life. Your routines. Your freedom. You'll have security following you everywhere. You'll have to be careful about who you trust. I know. And there will be things I can't tell you. Darkness I can't share. Parts of my work that have to stay separate from this. I know. He exhales slowly. And you still want to stay? Ada takes his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. I've spent my whole life being careful, being smart, making safe choices because everyone told me that's what good girls do. She lets the truth flow unfiltered. And I'm tired. I'm tired of safe. I'm tired of waiting for permission to want something extraordinary. She kisses him. Soft. Gentle. A question more than a statement. Jae-won answers. His hands slide into her hair, pulling her closer, deepening the kiss with a desperation that steals her breath. He tastes like whiskey and salt and something she can't name, something that feels like coming home. When they finally break apart, both breathing hard, Jae-won rests his forehead against hers. This changes everything, he whispers. I know. There's no going back. I know. He pulls away, his expression shifting, becoming something harder, more resolved. Then there's something you need to see. Something that will help you understand what you're choosing. The room is hidden. Behind a painting in his study there's a door. Behind the door, a staircase leading down. Behind the staircase a corridor that smells like stone and history. And at the end of the corridor, a vault. Jae-won enters a code, presses his thumb to a scanner, submits to a retinal check. The door opens. Inside, the walls are lined with photographs. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Men and women, old and young, their faces captured in candid moments, laughing, working, living. These are my people, Jae-won says quietly. Everyone who works for me. Everyone who depends on me. Everyone whose life is connected to mine. He walks along the wall, his fingers trailing over the images. I memorized every name, every family, every story. Because when you lead, you can't afford to see people as numbers. You have to remember that every decision you make affects human beings. Ada follows him slowly, taking in the scope of it. How many? 8,000 directly. 30,000, if you count subsidiaries and dependent businesses. He stops in front of a cluster of photos, the three men from the warehouse. Park Jin-ho with his daughter's rainbow drawing tucked into the frame. Lee Sung-min in his engagement photo. Choi Dae-young scarred and smiling holding a fishing rod. I failed them tonight, Jae-won says. I failed to protect them. And now their families will wake up tomorrow to news that will destroy their worlds. His voice breaks again. How do I face them? What do I say? Ada takes his hand. You tell them the truth. That their fathers and brothers died protecting something they believed in. That their sacrifice won't be forgotten. And that you'll spend the rest of your life making sure it meant something. Jae-won looks at her. You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's just clear. She squeezes his fingers. The right thing usually is. They stand together in the vault of memories, surrounded by the faces of people whose lives depend on this man's choices. And Ada realizes with sudden clarity that she's no longer a bystander. She's part of this now, for better or worse. 3 days later, the attackers are found. Ada doesn't ask what happens to them, doesn't want to know. But she sees the change in Jae-won when he returns from the interrogation. The hardness in his eyes, the tension in his shoulders, the way he scrubs his hands for 10 minutes in scalding water before he can bring himself to touch her. She holds him anyway. Learns to love him in the spaces between violence. Learns to build something tender in a world that rewards cruelty. Her business takes off faster than she expected. Jae-won's connections open doors that would have taken her years to find. But she insists on earning every success herself, refusing his money, declining his shortcuts, building her empire on her own terms. He respects that, loves her for it. And slowly, day by day, the walls around his heart begin to crumble. 6 months later, Ada meets his mother. The elder Mrs. Shin is small and fierce, with silver-streaked hair and eyes that miss nothing. She studies Ada for a long moment before speaking. You're not what I expected. I rarely am. The corner of Mrs. Shin's mouth twitches. My son hasn't smiled in years. Not really. But when he speaks of you, something lights up in his face that I thought was gone forever. She pauses. For that, I will tolerate your foreignness. It's not approval. Not exactly. But it's a start. 1 year later everything changes. Ada is in her office, reviewing production samples for her newest line, when Secretary Kong appears in her doorway. His face is gray. Miss Okonkwo, you need to come with me. Now. Her blood turns to ice. What happened? Is Jae-won? He's alive. But he's been shot. The drive to the hospital is a blur. Ada barely registers the security escorts, the flashing lights, the crowds of black-suited men parting to let her through. All she can see is Jae-won's face in her mind. All she can hear is his voice, telling her that people around him get hurt. The hospital room is too white, too bright, too sterile. Jae-won lies on the bed, his chest wrapped in bandages, machines beeping around him. His eyes are closed, but he's breathing. Ada sinks into the chair beside him, taking his hand in both of hers. You promised, she whispers. You promised you'd be careful. His eyes flutter open. I was careful. His voice is raspy, weak. The bullet that hit me was meant for my heart. But I turned at the last second because I was thinking about you. Tears stream down her face. That's not funny. It's not a joke. He lifts his hand to her face, his touch feather-light. I heard your voice in my head, telling me to be dangerous, telling me to feel something. So I did. And it saved my life. Ada leans down and kisses him. Gently. Desperately. Don't ever scare me like this again. I can't promise that. His eyes are serious now. This life doesn't come with guarantees. But I can promise that every breath I have left belongs to you. That I'll fight for us with everything I am. And that no matter what happens, you'll never be alone again. She holds his hand to her chest, pressing it against her heartbeat. Then I'll take those promises. Even knowing what they cost? Ada looks at this man, wounded but unbroken, dangerous but tender. A king of shadows who chose her over kingdoms. Especially knowing what they cost. They marry quietly. A small ceremony in the garden of his estate, with cherry blossoms falling around them like pink snow. Ada wears white silk with African embroidery at the hem. Jae-won wears a traditional hanbok in deep blue. His mother weeps. Secretary Kong actually smiles. And Ada's father, who flew from Lagos after months of silence, walks her down the aisle with tears streaming down his face. I thought I lost you when you left home, he whispers as they approach the altar. But I think you were just finding where you belonged. Ada hugs him so tightly her arms ache. 2 years later, their daughter is born. They name her Chioma, good God in Igbo, because her arrival feels like divine intervention. She has her father's sharp eyes and her mother's warm skin. She laughs constantly, fears nothing, and has the entire Shin organization wrapped around her tiny finger by the time she's 6 months old. Jae-won holds her like she's made of glass, sings her Korean lullabies at midnight, cries the first time she calls him Appa. And Ada watches this man, this feared boss, this architect of empires, this king of darkness, become soft in all the ways that matter. But the world doesn't stop being dangerous because they found happiness. Enemies still circle. Threats still emerge. The cost of power never stops demanding payment. And Ada learns to fight. Not with fists or weapons, though Jae-won insists on training her in both, but with strategy. With intelligence. With the same stubborn courage that made her defend a stranger in a restaurant. She becomes his partner in every sense. His counsel. His conscience. The voice that reminds him of his humanity when the darkness threatens to swallow it. And together they build something neither of them thought possible. A family. A legacy. A love story written in the margins of chaos. 10 years later, Ada stands on the bridge over the Han River. The same bridge where everything began. Jae-won stands beside her, silver threading through his hair now, lines carved by time and survival marking his face. But his hand in hers feels the same strong, certain, real. Do you ever regret it? He asks. Ada considers the question. She thinks of everything she's sacrificed. The safety. The normalcy. The simple life she might have lived if she'd walked away that first night. She thinks of the fear, the danger, the nights spent wondering if he would come home. She thinks of her daughter, asleep at home under the watchful eyes of men who would die to protect her. Of her business, now an empire spanning 3 continents. Of the life she's built in the ruins of everything she was told to want. Not for a single moment, she says. Jae-won pulls her closer, wrapping his arms around her as the city glitters below. I was dead before I met you, he whispers into her hair. Walking through life like a ghost, going through the motions, waiting for someone to finally end what I was too stubborn to end myself. And now, he turns her to face him. His eyes, those dark, guarded eyes that she spent a decade learning to read, are clear, open, vulnerable in a way that still takes her breath away. Now I understand why I survived, he says. Why I fought. Why I endured all of it. Why? He smiles, a real smile, warm and unguarded and impossibly beautiful. So I could be here. With you. Living a life I never thought I deserved. Ada rises on her toes and kisses him. The wind swirls around them. The city pulses with life. And somewhere in the distance, their daughter dreams of adventures yet to come. If you've made it this far, you've witnessed something rare. A love story forged in fire, tested by darkness and proven by time. But Ada and Jae-won's story is just one thread in a tapestry of tales. Subscribe to Seoul and Savannah Stories for more journeys into worlds where love meets danger and courage rewrites destiny. Leave a comment telling me what moment stayed with you. And remember, sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is stay.